Hello, and welcome to episode number 16 of Boutique Talk. My name is Jake Boston, otherwise known as Steelbook Obsessed on all your major social media platforms. And if you want to listen to all things physical media related, then you've come to the right place. Every week, I have on a new guest to talk about their physical media journey. And tonight, I am joined with the only person that has ever made any financial videos entertaining to me. He has over 16 million likes and is a stone's throw away from hitting 800,000 followers on TikTok. That's crazy. Let's say hello to Bryan Starr, aka bstarrcinema. How's it going?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me here. I'm excited.
Absolutely, yeah. You and I, we talked a little bit backstage, but you and I have been talking on this space for like 3 years, but I don't think we've ever done it like in person.
No, yeah, it's all it's crazy. You think you know people like as if we've grown up together, and then you realize we haven't even actually met. It's just been
Right.
comments, DMs, and things like that. And yeah, so I'm excited that you started this so that we could make this happen for sure.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do a podcast because I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I talk to these people a lot, like, just via message, but it's nice to kind of have something like
Mm.
virtually in person at least, just to see a face,
Yeah.
have a
No,
conversation like
absolutely.
this.
I
Yeah.
think it's important for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is also important is when you collect when to kind of say no and pump the brakes a little bit. I know that I've kind of done that myself from time to time. I really like the content that you make over on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whenever that's sprinkled in there, and just
Mhm.
kind of seeing your process of how like you had this giant room. Do you know how
Mhm.
many movies you used to have?
Yeah, I did a video when I moved that entire room, where I finally counted. I took the
Hmm.
time before I packed it all up. I finally counted, and it was over 3,000. But it was beautifully displayed,
It
so
looks
it
great.
looked like even more. Like 3,000 is a big number. Like we all can agree with that. But it looked like a library, and so yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a nice like
But
panoramic view, like
mm,
3 walls full of movies.
yeah.
It's like when you collect movies, this is what you dream of having in the
Yeah,
house someday.
yeah, it was the dream shelf for sure. I spent a lot of money on those shelves too.
Right. Well, they looked nice, yeah. I spent some on this. It's kind of the rinky dink version of what you had, but it's
Yeah,
getting the job done for sure. And
yeah, it looks great.
was there a certain point to when you were collecting where you like, wow, why am I ever gonna watch these movies? Why
Mm.
what made the idea form into your head that like, hey, maybe I don't need all of this?
Mhm. It's when I moved, yeah, it was making those YouTube videos
Mhm.
and putting them all, that collection has been through 7 or 8 moves, ever since I started, in high school. So every time I moved into my dorm, every time I moved into the multiple apartments and homes that I've been in since college, it has come with me, and it was at its biggest at that final house before I moved out.
Mhm.
And it was when I was putting all of those totes together where I was just like, this is nuts. I even tried, one of those videos was trying to compress it down,
Yeah.
but it's so hard. You see a title, and it's really hard to give it away. Of course, as we all know, you can't rely on it being anywhere else. But when space is an issue, it's you got to give up something.
Right. The montage I had at the very beginning, that was a montage
Yeah,
of you just kind of like combing through like, okay, I don't need this. Let's just kind of shrink it down as
yeah,
much as I can.
yeah,
I've been in that same boat just because you only have like X amount of space in your collection, and I'm starting to like stretch that real thin. So
yeah,
you gotta be very selective in what movies you're like, hey, I want this or I have this and I haven't watched it. It's been in my collection for almost 10 years now. Am I ever
yeah,
gonna watch this thing?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of blind buys in there as well that I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm either going to watch it or I'm not. That those are kind of easier to get rid of. But yeah, it's nothing's really that easy, to be honest.
The thing is, I'm a sucker for a blind buy. I'm like I
Mhm.
love one of the best feelings in the world to me is like picking a movie that I've never seen before off the shelf, popping it in, and falling in love with it. and I wish
Yeah.
it would happen way more often. It does not. You get burned
Yeah.
more often than not. But when
Yeah.
that special time comes, you're like, this is part of the reason. This is one of the main reasons why I collect physical media. It just
It makes
feels
you
so good.
it makes you feel special. It makes you feel like you know what you're talking about. It's like, oh yeah, I could judge this based off of this title or the art,
Mhm.
and yeah, I'm right. People should listen to me.
Well, I know you were talking about like the moving process and packing it all up.
Yeah.
I've been in three, four different places since I've been collecting, and every
Mhm.
single move is harder than the next. Like I think from my last house to this house, I probably packed six totes of movies. And at
Yeah.
that point, you're just like, wow, this is a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. And you just kind of realize it always looks nice on the shelf, but it's something else when you have to physically pick it up, move it
Yeah.
somewhere. Like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
have too much. And if I were to ever move from this house, I don't know what I would do because I think my collection has grown 2 times since
Mhm.
the last time I moved.
Yeah. Yeah. They get heavier too, depending on what you're collecting.
Hmm.
And it is insane to see a completely empty tote fill up way too quickly. And
Yeah.
and then you look on your wall and there's just the tiniest empty space. And yeah, that was kind of it for me. And I was like, oh, okay, this is. And then when I moved where I'm at now, it's a much smaller place. I
Hmm.
don't have the wall of shelves. And I've made it work quite well, but there's definitely, I would say there's definitely 2 to 300 movies, that I would still love to get rid of just because, of spacing still. And so the journey continues still.
Always, it never ends, man. And
Yeah,
when
yeah.
when you collect steel books, they're a little bit heavier than your average Blu-ray jewel case for sure. I also
Yeah, oh
collect
my gosh.
vinyls; those are even heavier than because they can get
Yes.
so compact.
Yeah.
Um, I can see some Funko Pops behind you. What other
Mhm.
things do you like collecting other than movies?
Yeah, so I'm in this journey right now of dwindling down and being strict with collections. And so I'm
Hmm.
still very much into movies. I do love Funko Pops, but I'm actually getting rid of quite a few. I've kind of fallen out of love with some of them, but there's still some that, of course, I really appreciate. And then my favorite superhero is Batman. And instead of collecting everything Batman, I have kind of niched down to a very specific Batman, and that is the animated Batman, and that is very prominent behind me. So,
Hmm.
like 98% of what you can see in this area here is animated Batman, the original stuff from the 90s, and so it's more just really trying to niche down on the things that I love. And so I have a little collection that's over here, and it's, Nightmare Before Christmas and, small things that I love, versus there's just so much. There's so much that I enjoy.
Hmm.
It could be crazier. And but right now I'm looking at a Funko Pop of the Joker that I don't need. If I really am being strict with what I'm trying to niche down with, then I'm going to get rid of that. And yeah, that's the plan. So, um, but yeah, it's when I go to a Comic Con, for instance, it used to be I'm going to grab everything that I like,
Hmm.
and now it's more. I'm only looking for animated Batman stuff from the 90s. So not even like the new modern toys, like
Sure.
but yeah, so it's what used to be me looking through every little bin, every crook and cranny, has become less of that. Yeah,
I
it's all about space. It's all about
right.
saving your space.
Totally feel you. Like in my
Yeah,
20s, I was just grabbing everything I possibly
yeah,
could, just being like, I need this, this, and this. And then I had a kid, and then I hit my 30s, and then it's just like, okay, my priorities are elsewhere, and I'm running out of room to put everything that I love. I also like pop vinyls. I have to like kind of say, hey, I'm only going to collect this line,
mhm.
otherwise it could go absolutely nuts. Like I'm an advertising major, so I collected all the ad icons that I could because I
Nice.
love
That's
seeing
great.
all of those things
Yeah,
because there's hardly ever any toys of like some of the very obscure ones. So
yeah,
that line was fun to
yeah.
collect for, but
This
yeah,
this
it's
these are my directors.
Hmm.
Like, where am I going to get a toy of Jordan Peele?
Right.
You
Yep.
know,
Mhm.
like, that's incredible, and I wish they did more. I would love a toy of, like, Spielberg or
Yeah, didn't they
whatever.
do did they do Del Toro and Abrams?
Yeah.
There's only, like, a few directors with Ava DuVernay, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Yeah, so
They're
you
all
got
over the
Kevin
board.
Smith, Hitchcock, and he's in black and white, which is really great.
Yep.
The rare ones are James Wan, Taika Waititi, and then James Gunn, which I don't have.
Mm,
Like, he's like one of 500 that were made. And then they just like the last person they made, I think, was Jordan Peele.
mhm.
Um, and it's been years. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Curious
I
why they
need more.
stopped that. I feel like
Yeah,
directors would like to have a toy version of themselves, but
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. What do you currently, what do you like collecting more, movies or toys, or is there anything else?
Yeah, no, I'm still very much into movies, but I have kind of shifted what I'm collecting in the movie space.
Mhm.
But yeah, everywhere I go, I'm always looking for Batman animated. Um, that's just always on the radar.
Mhm.
But yeah, movies are forever, and I will forever collect. It's just I'll be collecting the things that bring me more joy than just a standard 4K upgrades. Where the poster hasn't changed and something like that. Like, that to me doesn't really excite me.
Mhm.
But I have, like, right next to me something that I picked up recently. I haven't seen a single one of these movies, but this from Vinegar
Oh,
Syndrome, I'm pretty
yeah.
sure.
Mhm. Televised terror.
Um,
Yep.
the piece, it comes off like that. You got all the movies inside,
Mhm.
and what I love, even when I was collecting just DVD, I was very strict about not collecting when it was multiple movies on a single piece of media or a
Yeah.
single box. So I love that, like, all three movies have their separate section. This stuff, this is the when they actually care about the piece of physical media, that's what excites me. That's what I'm into.
Right. And Vinegar, I got into Vinegar Syndrome this time last year when they had like their 10-year anniversary sale. And the main thing that made me fall in love with them is their packaging. Like some of the
It's
best that is being made right now for like the
top
most
notch.
obscene stuff you can think of. Like movies that should not deserve this treatment get it. And I'm like,
Yep.
God, I kind of wish that this type of love and care would be put into like even like a Kino Lorber or something. Like
Mhm.
their slips are just kind of very basic to me. Like the black and white has always just been
Yeah.
whatever. But I
Yeah.
will collect garbage, literal garbage on
Yep.
Vinegar Syndrome just because it looks so dang nice on the shelf.
It's so nice. I've come across some of the most beautiful pieces of artwork, and that's what it is to me,
Hmm.
is a art piece on a shelf.
Yeah,
It is especially if it's a movie that I'm not going to watch every day. If it's a movie that takes me 6 years to get back to it, at least it looks beautiful on my shelf.
right. They
That's
just
the
had
focus.
Vinegar Syndrome just had a sale. I have a stack of stuff that I just got in.
Nice.
Like there's a beautiful package for
Oh
Flesh
my
for
gosh,
Frankenstein. And it's
that's
absolutely nuts. Like
crazy.
this movie was kind of lost to time a little bit. Like it had a Criterion on Laserdisc, but never really like
Oh
came
wow.
out on anything else. And then they
Yeah,
magically just kind of put it out on 4K and a 3D version of the same movie. Like their packaging is crazy. But
that's
I saw that
incredible.
I saw that you showed off Vinegar Syndrome, and I see that
Mhm.
you're wearing an Oscilloscope Laboratories hat, which I absolutely
Yes.
love and I'm very jealous of. That
Yes.
thing looks great.
Yes. Yeah.
Are there is there a particular boutique label that you like to collect for more than any other?
Yeah, so it's so funny, man. My journey of physical media is so weird, and it's all out there on TikTok to see. Like, you scroll all the
Mhm,
way back, 99% of my collection was DVD only.
mhm,
I just wasn't into it. I wasn't into upgrading. I was the cheapskate collector, and still kind of am, to be honest. But uh, it was Criterion, for instance. I would buy the DVD because for $30 I could get two movies.
mhm.
There would be when it's 50% off,
Right.
versus $20 for one. which is ridiculous. It's but that's how my mind was. And so
Hmm.
I only really collected Criterion, and it wasn't until I had it. It wasn't until this was released that I even
Mm.
heard of Arrow Video.
Okay.
I it just wasn't like I knew of Steelbook because I had seen it before,
Hmm.
but because I was so cheap, I didn't look into boutique labels. I didn't look into Steelbook. I had one Steelbook for the
Hmm.
longest time, and it was Interstellar, and it's just because I wanted it on the
Looks
greatest
great.
piece that I could find. It's beautiful.
Right.
And so it wasn't until this came out, or my bad, it wasn't until Southland Tales came out that I had even heard of Arrow, bought that because I love Richard Kelly,
Hmm.
bought this, and haven't looked back. Like it is, I am obsessed with Arrow Video now. I really do love these guys, Severin, Vinegar Syndrome, and then the random ones. Like I grabbed this on purpose because this is a movie that could just have the standard poster again, but Shout Select
Hmm.
puts out some really great slip covers for their movies, which I love Clue, so of course I had to get that upgraded. And then the biggest, it's not a singular label, but I am just like you obsessed with Steelbook. It is
They're great.
wonderful. It is
Hmm.
just incredible, and the big reason why I never got into it is because they are expensive,
Yes.
um and still to this day. And but of course you can get some great deals, and I've been lucky to get some really good deals on movies that I love. And as you know, we are lucky to get free movies sometimes,
Hmm.
and the collection has grown because of that as well. So, but yeah, I love steelbooks.
They're yeah, to me, they're still the best type of packaging there is out there. But there is something about a nice, beautiful, beefy box set when it's just shown on the shelf that's just like, okay, it's for the movies that I love. I
Yeah,
don't mind having them like double the thickness on my shelf just so they can kind of
yeah,
stand out on there too. It looks
yeah,
great.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, no,
Um, I think you mentioned Severin. That's one of the boutique labels that I really haven't fallen into love yet because they are very expensive. Like I think I have like
yeah,
one or two titles, but those are
yeah,
only ones that I find secondhand. I
yeah,
haven't watched them yet, so I
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Severin is one that I want to fall in love with more, but their prices are absolutely crazy
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mostly secondhand for me. Before I really buckled down, I would buy their DVDs still as well,
Hmm.
just so I could get those crazy titles. Um, but yeah, it's all expensive. And it was way cheaper when I was only doing DVD. But
Hmm.
at the same time, though, like it, it truly does bring me joy. A number no longer matters to me. I'm not bringing people over to show off the movie wall anymore.
Right.
Now it's just the most beautiful pieces of the movies that I love the most, that I
Hmm.
can find. That's what I love.
When I first joined TikTok in 2020, I think you're one of the first movie people I found on there, and you were doing like in the comments, people would be like, "Do you have this movie?" And
Yeah,
you'd show it off, and that was so much fun when you did that back in the day. And now I don't know if you go on TikTok, and just scroll, you see
yeah,
lives all the time of people doing that in real time. Like
yeah.
it's
That's
kind of nuts how that type of format has
yeah,
evolved the way that it has.
yeah. I feel bad for them. I was very lucky,
Mhm.
and I'm fully aware. All I had to do was a 10-second, 15-second video, of just someone said, yeah, someone would ask if I had a specific movie. The chances were pretty high, but
Mhm.
of course, I would only select the ones that I did have. I would try to impress some of the movie people and do some like a little bit rarer titles or whatever. But yeah, I would literally walk, pull it off my shelf, show it, maybe say a couple of things, and that was it. And I could do that 5 times a day. And now these poor souls, and I think they love it, and I hope they do, because it's fun to watch. But man, they're going for an hour just nonstop, reaching down, reaching up, finding their titles, and it's impressive because
Mhm.
they know where everything is, hopefully as they should. But yeah, these I mean, I feel I would go horse. I like just
Mhm.
talking that often. It's I rarely go live just in general, just because I love to talk, but man,
Mhm.
I need breaks.
For me personally, I feel like going live has been the only way that I've been able to grow in the past like 6 months. I don't know what it
Okay.
is, but I
Yeah.
feel like ever since something switched in the algorithm to where like when I scroll on TikTok, I see something for the shop or a
Yep.
live. I go through like 3 or 4 or an ad, and then I finally get to like a video I semi care about.
Yeah.
So I me going live is just very difficult. Like I could do these lives, but it's just hard to
Yeah.
kind of think of something organic to talk about for like over an hour, because the longer you're on there, the more time you're up on the feed. It's just it's definitely a different beast
Yeah.
nowadays as to what it was even last year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's changed so much, and it doesn't make sense. I
Mhm,
took 2 months off last year. Didn't post to anything, and I came back and nothing really changed, and I couldn't really figure it out. Like, man, I was at New York Comic Con. Like, that's
mhm.
awesome,
Yeah.
but it's as if I was just at the Dollar Tree, like just like anyone else could go and and,
Mhm.
and do. And some things did well, but yeah, man, it really is frustrating. It doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. How long have you been making content for?
For TikTok, or just
Just
like,
for anything, just in general.
yeah. Well, I find it so related to just my interest as a filmmaker, and I got into that when I was 12. So
Hmm.
since I was 12, I've been learning how to tell a story in an entertaining way. And it doesn't mean that I was successful at it at 12, of course.
Mhm.
But I've learned how to use a camera and to tell a story, and I have been doing that. I joined YouTube in 2006,
Oh, wow.
and all of my short films that I had made before that, that's where I put them. And then I found out Smosh started making money because they were doing YouTube videos, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that's interesting, because in my head, I could only be successful in Hollywood. I could only make a movie, and I still want to make a movie. But when I saw that happen, that was like the thing that clicked of like, oh, I could maybe do that. And of course, nothing really happened for quite a while.
Mhm.
And then I started my own filmmaking business, doing mostly weddings for like 3 or 4 years, but it
Mhm.
paid incredibly well, so I didn't have to like work a full-time job. That was my job.
Mhm.
Um, but it wasn't until TikTok that things started happening finally. Even though I mean, during COVID, I had a cooking show on my Instagram stories only.
Hmm.
So if you didn't watch my stories, you missed it.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of proof of that show existing because I didn't like save like or anything like that.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I was doing YouTube, I was doing Instagram, but nothing was really great because it was mostly being shown to just the people around me. It was just like Kentucky and Louisville. And
Mm.
like I don't want them to see it. I want more people to see it, especially if they don't care about me. Like, one, why are you following me? You're taking up space.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, I wanted more people to see my stuff because I like telling stories, and I want people to see those stories. And TikTok just I joined in 2020, or I started doing content in 2020. And yeah, I just went from there, and it's been frustrating the
Mhm.
entire time up until recently. But yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it's content creation is to me is just another word for just telling stories in one way or another.
Yeah. In my job, I'm able to be semi-creative, but not the
Yeah.
type of creative that I get a lot of enjoyment out of, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yep. Yep.
I ever since college, when I learned how to actually edit, I've always loved doing it. It's just something that scratches a niche in my brain that just feels
Yeah.
so good. And
Yeah.
TikTok makes it so easy to do. I
Yeah.
love uh, their editing format.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, just trying to like change with the times and the updates of apps. It gets frustrating, but you just got to keep on like charging forward and try to
Yeah.
adapt as well as you can.
Yeah. Adapt is the biggest thing, man. And I it's all you can do, and
Mhm.
it's really frustrating when it doesn't work. Even even if you're trying more, because someone's like, well, obviously you should probably do something more than a couple of times to see if it works. But when you go a whole year and you've barely grown,
Mhm.
that's tough. That's really hard. I know a lot of people, you probably can understand.
Yeah. Yes. Mhm.
It's tough. It's really hard. But there's something about it. There's something that's just fun, and I want to keep doing it.
Mhm.
Even though every other day I'm also like, I don't know.
Right. I mean, sometimes you just get in the zone of like creating content, and sometimes you're just like,
Yeah.
I just need a break. Just let me breathe for a second.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I, I found more enjoyment kind of making the content that I make and spreading that out into different platforms, just so it's performing okay somewhere. As long as it's doing
Yeah.
okay somewhere, I'm okay with that. And
Hmm.
even if the other ones like tank or just keep on doing the same, as long as one is moving forward, that's a win in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. I just recently I had a video that I posted on TikTok. It didn't do well, and
Hmm.
then I posted it on Instagram and did like millions, like,
Hmm.
which is unheard of on Instagram. It's very rare when that happens. And I was like,
Right.
okay, I know I'm not crazy. I know the video that I made, there's an audience for it. It's just which algorithm is going to help me out and get those people to see it. And so
Hmm.
when that happens, that to me, that's the like, okay, I am good at what I do. Which you need that reminder, man.
Correct.
It is such a needed thing as a creative. Some people will say, I only create for yourself. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Mhm. Feedback's
Good
always
for
nice.
like,
Yeah.
good. That must be nice. Yeah. No, man, I want people to see stuff that I do. Why is that so hard?
Correct. Yeah. Well, one thing that a lot of people are seeing that you're doing now is the series that you have trying to pull yourself out of debt.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea? Because it's not talked about a lot. Like, usually, debt is this black hole that nobody likes to shine a spotlight on at all. And the way that you've been doing it and showing everything from like, hey, I have X amount of, you started with $30,000 in debt, and just showing the process of how it breaks down and how you're able to like chunk it out into different pieces of debt that you have.
Yeah.
I find it very fascinating to watch, but how did it come to your brain to kind of make it formatted like this?
Um, I don't know. I knew my hook, and I think that was about it. I knew my hook, which was, this is day one. It's a very famous hook, a very popular hook. This is
Hmm.
day one of doing something.
Yeah.
So this is day one of getting out of debt by selling my collections. And I knew the visual hook was my wall of movies and Funko Pops for when I say selling my collections.
Hmm.
So I knew it was a good hook and I knew it was a good visual hook. And I put it out there knowing that debt is not talked about. It's very embarrassing. Um, but I know a lot of people can relate. And so I just did it. I was the strike, I took 2 months off when the strike was happening.
Hmm.
It was a great time for me to just stop. and reassess, like, what do I really want to be doing here? And I don't necessarily really want to be doing debt content for the rest of my content creation world, but talking about the same movie that everyone else was talking about wasn't working for me.
Sure.
Nor did I really want that to be. I don't necessarily want to be the movie guy
Hmm.
as much as I love movies. It's tough. It's a tough feeling, but um yeah, what happened is this, all of this debt, which exclusive for anyone who's watching, because I'm not going to talk about this until I make it on TikTok, but I'll talk about it right now.
Hmm.
All of that debt is very new debt, like within
Hmm.
2 years. It's mostly taxes, as I said in episode 1,
Yeah.
because I have my own business and I screwed up. There's a lot of reasons why that happened. And I'm not like going to be arrested anytime. I'm not, it's not that kind of screw up.
Hmm.
It's just, man, taxes stack up.
I couldn't
And
imagine like being like an individual claiming
yeah,
all. Yeah, I
yeah,
work a
yeah,
9 to 5. Taxes are kind of
yep,
easy for me to track everything.
yep,
To claim it as yourself, that seems like a nightmare to
yeah,
me. It seems like it's very
yeah.
easy to fall into traps.
Yeah, no, absolute nightmare. Get help. And and so that got stacked. Me moving created some debts, and it just kept stacking. And the nice thing is that I tracked it. So I wasn't blind to it. Um, it wasn't like that big of a surprise
Hmm.
once it hit that 30K number. But it would eat at me, every night when I
Right.
looked at it. And I'm trying with my own business, I'm trying to get work and the work isn't coming. And um and so what happened is I had booked a trip, and I didn't go into debt. And that's something too that I want to bring up. Nothing that I collect puts me in debt. That's
Hmm.
just money that I probably should have been putting towards debt, you know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Hmm.
And so I was going to go on this trip that also was not going to put me in debt. But what happened is the day that the rest of the payment was due, I looked at that money and was like, "Th- this could be the start."
Hmm.
And then I just thought about it. I just thought about it for a couple of days. It was due October 30th, and I started the series November 15th. And the rest is history. And it's insane. Just today I put out an episode where I'm more than halfway there now.
Nuts.
And
Yeah.
so that took 2 months
Yeah.
to
More
do.
like your debt
And
is almost history. That's so
mhm.
awesome to hear and see the process and just kind of see like the group of people that you have around you with support about this whole thing. It's got to be the best feeling.
It's insane, man. It's insane when you get 150 comments and not a single one is bad. Or
That doesn't
not.
happen. Yeah. Hmm.
No, that's it doesn't, and it's rare. Like when the videos do really well, of course it brings in the crowd that doesn't know or get it.
Hmm.
Um, but on average, man, it is like 99% just good people that get it and that understands. And yeah, it is made something so dark and something so depressing be fun and exciting. And I couldn't have done it any other way. I honestly, I don't think I could have done it any other way. I had to find a way to make it fun.
Hmm.
And really glad, really glad it worked out this way.
Yeah, and it's very daunting to see a number like that for anybody. But
Yeah,
the way that you've made the videos as entertaining as you have
yeah,
for a subject matter that is
mhm,
pretty overwhelming to think about, I
yeah,
I I don't know how you got over that hump because I don't know if I would have been able to do that same thing just to kind of like edit everything into such an entertaining matter to
mm.
where like, hey, I'm having fun watching this guy dig himself out of debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, you turn it into a game
Mhm.
pretty much, you got to do that. And so I have these things called the challenge, and didn't expect like a challenge season 2 or anything, but once I saw people so excited about it, plus once I made a lot of money in under 30 days for the first challenge, and it was nuts. It was absolutely insane.
For
I
people
I
that
I
aren't
was
watching it,
Yeah,
he's made over $15,000 in the span of like a month and a half. It's been
yeah.
absolutely awesome to watch, to say the least.
It's nuts, man. It's
Mhm.
it's absolutely nuts, and it genuinely, and I'm gonna make a video about this because I get a lot of comments of like, "I wish I could do it," "I wish I could do that."
Sure.
And I am fully aware of how lucky I am to have an audience.
Mhm.
But as you know, an audience means nothing if the algorithm isn't going to put your content out there. And
Correct.
it took me stopping my niche, getting out of my niche for
Mhm.
a small period of time, and putting it out there for this to be successful. And thankfully, like, I have the talent to tell a story in an entertaining way. So I am very lucky with that for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and thankfully I have a lot of stuff to sell. So that is actually very helpful.
Yeah.
But it just it it's easier said than done.
Mhm.
How many times have you made a video and you've been like, this is viral, this is the one, and it doesn't do it, but then you do it again and it does do it, and you're like, I knew it, except you had like five that you said the same exact thing. So did you
Correct.
know it? I don't know.
Mhm.
So I got lucky with this one. But at the same time, going into it, I did, I kind of knew, like, it hits all of the things that people enjoy.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's
It
nonstop. It takes me like 3 hours to make those videos.
I
It's
bet, yeah.
crazy.
I mean, it looks like there's a lot of hard work on the editing floor. So, I mean, congrats to you. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot of guts to just take some time off and come back with a full reset, just to be like, hey, I was making this stuff. Now I'm going in a completely different direction with some sprinkles of
Yeah,
the stuff you guys in my audience used to like, but I'm trying to
yeah,
grab more people in. Like
yeah, exactly.
it takes a certain special something to be like, hey, I'm going to switch everything that I have done into this. And I'm so happy that it's paying off for
Yeah,
you in all of
thank
the
you.
ways possible.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's risky. It
Hmm.
is. I don't know how to get back to like the movie hunts. We love doing those.
Well, I guess that is a question. Like when you are
Yeah,
out of debt, I mean, you still have time to think about it, but
yeah,
have you started at least planting seeds in your mind on, hey, what route should I go after this?
yeah. Yeah, so I for that audience, I definitely have more goals that I can reach.
Hmm.
Instead of getting out of debt, now it turns into saving for specific things. Um, for instance, I need to move again this
Oh,
year.
really? Oh, man.
Um, but it's exciting. I'm ready for it. It needs to happen.
Okay.
But the moving is expensive.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so that's like a small challenge, if you will.
Sure.
But no, basically, it's going to be me just trying to figure out, yeah, how to sprinkle in the things that I did love and still do love, because I'm not going to give up collecting altogether, and I'm going to probably lose some of the audience on that when I go and, for Criterion 50% and grab one. I'm going to get those comments of like, I thought you were in debt, or I thought you were getting rid of your collection,
Hmm.
even though that's not true. Um, it's 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 going to happen. And so basically it's finding that kind of sweet spot of introducing the old content, because that's still very much me, while still keeping the audience that has grown to love what I'm doing right now. I
Right.
think it's possible. I think doing some fun things that I have planned for the year will have people excited. but I can definitely see numbers kind of leveling back out to what we're all kind of used to. So,
Sure.
if all of this, I told my friend this the other day, if all of this success was just to get me out of debt and then it goes straight back to, under 10K videos,
That's a win. Yeah.
that's great. That's
Hmm.
fine. I'm still going to make content, and I just won't be in debt doing it. So, yeah.
Right. No, that worse things have happened. That's for damn
Exactly.
sure. Yeah. Well, I was gonna. I know that. I know you're aware that Best Buy is not going to sell physical media anymore, and right now they are having a ton of sales on all of
Yeah.
their stuff. I was gonna ask you if you've picked up anything because, like you said, your background was like the cheapskate collector, that type of thing.
Yeah.
How in your brain right now, what is your mindset like on, hey, I can grab stuff right now while it's cheap, as opposed
Yeah.
to, hey, let's save up as much as I can to pay off debt?
Yeah, man, it's tough. Last Okay, so 2022 Black Friday, that
Mhm.
area of sales, I went hard just like everyone else did. I was going to Best Buy getting 4K. I remember Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. I specifically like grabbed those because I,
Mhm.
I I love those movies. This past Black Friday, I bought one movie. I bought one thing. And I forget what it is.
Right.
I'm trying to think of what that was. It was something.
Those dang impulse
But
buys when they're cheap, yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's been kind of the nice thing is I've done pretty good at slowing down
Mhm.
on grabbing everything. Every time you specifically have been posting about the Best Buy stuff, I go look for sure
Mhm.
because if I can get a movie that I want for cheap, then I'm going to look at it. I really um The Mist has a great
Yes, it
slipcover
does.
steelbook that is
Right.
beautiful,
Mhm.
and 2 times I've had it in my cart. But then I look at the $5 shipping. So, unfortunately for me, the Best Buy that is closest to me got rid of their movies, like, a year ago.
Oh, I
And
see.
so,
Mhm.
the Best Buy that I tend to go to is, like, across the bridge into Indiana, and I have to pay for a toll.
Mhm.
So, shipping is the same thing.
Right.
like, am I really getting it cheaper if I have to do that? And
Mhm.
so, um, but then there's like 3 or 4 other movies that I like to make shipping worth it, except they're all not available to ship. So, multiple times I've looked at it for
Mhm.
sure, but, yeah, but then there's something that just kinda kicks in, and I'm like, "Alright, I better not," and that's okay. So, it's been it's been pretty good, honestly. I know that there's great deals, and but for now, I'll just chill and
Right.
get them later for sure.
Mhm. Yep. No, that there's always the secondary market. For me, it's very, very hard to pass up deals. Like there's just something in my brain to be like, hey,
Yeah.
this movie, I don't even know if I want it that bad. Like there's Thor, Love and Thunder, Ant-Man and the Wasp,
Yeah. Right.
Mania, like $10 steel books for those suckers. When they came out, they were like 40. So there's something in my brain just like it's never gonna be cheaper than this, Jake. You gotta buy it right now, otherwise you're never gonna have it. If I don't
It's
own those movies,
very
it's gonna
true.
be fine. It's just
Yeah.
impulse buys all the time. Especially I'm a sucker for a deal, and anytime I can get a deal on a steel book specifically, I feel like I have to pounce.
Absolutely. I that just you just reminded me. I did do that. Um, I forget. It was like the first time that Best Buy like dropped their prices, and so I went to
Mhm.
go look because I really want Loki. I don't have Loki, the
Oh
steelbook.
sure. Hmm.
And it wasn't cheap. And so then the next thing I saw was Prey, um, the Predator
Yes.
prequel,
Yes.
and it wasn't a price that I loved, but pretty much every single time I see a deal like that, I go to eBay. If I
Mm.
can get it cheaper used, I'm going to grab it. And
Mhm.
I grabbed it off of eBay. It was slightly damaged. I don't necessarily care too much about that, to be honest. If
Mhm.
it's on the shelf, you're just never going to notice.
Right.
And it really wasn't that bad at all. I remember looking at it and being like, this was damaged. And I eventually found the dent. And it was great. And that was also the first time I watched it. I popped it in and freaking loved it. And that was very recent. That was like 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago
Sure.
that happened. So eBay, love eBay for the secondhand
Mhm.
market.
Man, I don't know if you have ever been to hamiltonbook.com. The
I
deals on
have.
deals on there are crazy. Like right now there's some Arrow video titles for like
Arrow is
$15.
nuts. Yeah.
I think they had 4K The Hills Have Eyes for $12. Like you're never going to find a deal
No.
cheaper than that.
Yeah. No,
You just got
I've
to
done
get
that. I've done that. I forget who brought that up. Someone brought that up in the community.
Mhm.
I forget who it was. And I went to go look, and I think I got the Count Yorga collection for like
Mhm.
so cheap.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll go back. But I even bought a couple. John Krasinski, his first movie he ever directed was called Brief Interviews with Hideous Men.
Never heard of
Um,
it.
and it's great. He
Mhm.
knows what he's doing. I had the DVD. The Blu-ray was like $2. And just threw it in there with a little lump of random movies, but when they're that cheap and that good of a title, yeah, that's a great spot.
Mhm. Absolutely. Let's see. I'm trying to think of other topics that I was going to talk to you about, but didn't kind of get there organically. I know
Mhm.
that when you were collecting, you've shown in your videos that you had a storage unit full of stuff. Why? How did the collection get so big to where like I need to pay monthly to have stuff I'm never going to use in this unit?
Yeah, that's a great question, a question I get all the time.
Hmm.
I did kind of answer it in episode 1 of the debt series, and it's very glossed over. But basically, I got into filmmaking. My bad. I got into reselling because I bought 300 movies from somebody, like
Hmm.
300 DVDs. I took what I wanted, sold the rest, and got my money back. And
Yeah.
so that's free movies.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is fun. And I got into reselling hard.
Hmm.
And it was just extra money. It was like trip money, especially around Christmas time when everyone's buying everything.
Right.
And so literally 75, 80% of what is in that storage unit was things that I got to resell and never did, but held on to it when I moved because um it's worth something,
Hmm.
and it makes no sense because I'm paying $144 a month
Hmm.
and not making money. Of
Hmm.
course, before the debt series. The debt series is finally paying off, but and I'm glad I still have all that stuff to for the debt series.
Sure.
But no, like without the debt series, completely pointless. But it is good stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's VHS in there, and I collected VHS forever ago and got out of it, but for whatever reason, kept buying VHS to resell.
Hmm.
Um, because everyone wants Jurassic Park. Everyone wants a clean copy of Jurassic Park on VHS. It's
Hmm.
just a beautiful thing. And so I would if I was out and I saw 50 cents, but yeah, I'll grab that. I
Hmm.
have totes full of DVDs. It's insane. And then yeah, just a bunch of random stuff, but that's pretty much how it happened. It's a mixture of stuff that I no longer wanted, but put into the pile of sell it eventually, and
Hmm.
then stuff that I grabbed years ago, like 3-4 years ago, that just was too lazy to take pictures of and put online, or they've been on my eBay for years, and I
Hmm.
just keep holding on to them just in case.
Right. I
So
dipped my
that's it.
toe. I dipped my toe into reselling during COVID just because it gave me something
Yep.
to do.
Yep.
And I it's crazy how quickly you can collect things and it can get out of hand fast. Like I bought shelving for my basement just to make sure that it's all organized. I know where it is when it sells, and that shelving filled up, and then I still had like sacks of stuff that I had to take pictures of. I'm like, okay, I gotta do a hard stop on this. Otherwise, I'm not gonna have room in my basement. It's just gonna be a cluttered hoarding mess, and I don't want that
Yeah.
to happen. Yeah, I don't want that to happen. I
And
still I still sell from time to time, but it can get
yeah.
overwhelming very quickly.
Oh yeah. And there's a reason why they call it a death pile. That's
Mm,
that's truly it. And that's
right.
so that's what it was. Is I had a section in my basement. It's where I took the pictures. It's where I stored everything.
Mhm.
Well, if you're not paying attention, and then you have to move,
Oof. Oh, I
that's
couldn't
when you
imagine.
realize, oh, well, we
Yeah.
have a bunch of stuff. Like there's people I guarantee who are watching my debt series, and it's like, this guy has way too much stuff. But if they like really paid attention to their basement, to their attics,
Mhm.
how much stuff do their moms have for every single holiday? You know what I'm saying? It's like things like that that you just don't really pay attention to until you have to move it somewhere or until you
Right.
don't have room for it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, unfortunately, the storage unit was born, and uh, if I hope I do it, but by Valentine's Day, I'm hoping to be in a much smaller storage unit, and I'm putting out a video either this week or next week that's explaining why even like still have a storage unit even if I get rid of everything. So, yeah,
Mhm. Well, especially if you're planning on moving, that's gonna be something nice to just have in your pocket just to store some
yeah,
random stuff for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, do you like the process of posting on eBay to sell, or are you more of like the whatnot route to where you can just sell a lot of stuff at once and ship it out at once?
Yeah, whatnot I love, and however, when you go to bed after a successful show and wake up to 42 boxes that you have to ship
Mhm.
is a nightmare if
Sure.
you're by yourself. And so I love it and I hate it at the same time. I love eBay and Mercari because you can sell the most random things
Mhm.
and you can get a lot of money for it. The one of the best things that I sold was Whole cans, like the OG Whole cans,
Yeah.
from I don't know 2002 or whatever. I got them for $2 at a peddler's mall and sold them for like 55. And that wasn't like the highest thing that I've sold something for, but
Mhm.
it's things like that. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
At like the first month I was doing it at Goodwill, I found like a tote that was just like that big, and it had a whole bunch of like little toys in it. And like it was
Yeah.
$3. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll dig through here and take pictures and see if I can find anything worth a damn. And there were God, I can't remember what the hell they're called. They're not GoBots, but they were really big in like the
Mm,
late 80s, early 90s. These little things that are just like animals that look like they're gladiators type deals. And there were a
mhm.
couple of those that were worth like $125. And I'm like, why? I had no idea these existed.
Yeah.
And like part of me is just like, I love going to Goodwill regardless, just to try to
Yeah.
find cheap movies to add to the collection and
Yeah.
whatnot. But I'm always looking everywhere else just to see like, hey, does this sell for a lot of money? Could I just like grab this, pay super cheap, and have it
Yeah.
sell quick for a big profit? Like to
Yep.
me, again, that makes my heart go flutter.
Yeah, it's insane. It is absolutely insane, and the more that you like, because I still watch resellers on YouTube
Yeah,
that I
me too.
appreciate.
Hmm.
And it's fun when you're even if you're like not into it, but you like see it in the wild, you're like, yeah,
Hmm.
that's a good thing right there. And
Right.
it's exciting. It's exciting for sure.
Yeah. I still go buy things, and for me now, if it doesn't ship easy, I don't pick it up because there have been
Yeah.
like so many times to where like you go through the process, you think you protect it well, and it gets shipped out, and you get like a
Mhm.
negative feedback or something, and that
Yeah.
just crushes you because then everything you work so hard on, you just got to like give it back, and you end up losing
Yeah.
money on the product. And for me, if it doesn't fit well in like an envelope or a small box, I'm just like, nope, I
Yeah.
no, thank you. Somebody else can
Yeah.
have this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's what I was doing is I was kind of niching down to the things that I love, like, so things that I love myself, I loved to sell just because it was cool to see, it was cool to get. I would buy like people's Funko collections.
Hmm.
Um, I bought one weeks before COVID and spent $700, and it was someone's entire like Star Wars Funko collection,
Hmm.
multiple boxes, so many freaking boxes. And the reason I bring up it was right before COVID is because having my own business during COVID was a nightmare. And like I just spent like $700 and I had these
Hmm.
Funkos everywhere. And for whatever reason, did not sell a single one of them. Like, I didn't post a single one of them
Oh.
during COVID because I
Hmm.
was, occupied with, other things.
Sure.
But it was just funny because I was like, "Man, I just spent so much money and the world just shut down. I lost all my work." Yeah, it was a nightmare, but it was fun when it was time to start selling those,
Right.
and then, of course, I took a couple for myself, as well.
Mhm. And that makes it fun for me. Like I've bought a couple collections and
Yeah,
have sold them off either like on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or something.
yeah,
And it's nice when you can go through the process, make some money, and also add to the collection. Like that to
yeah,
me, it's just like that's kind of why I do what I do. But
yeah. It's a
some of
blast.
the yeah the we have these collections back here, but there has to be some type of like origin story for why you personally fell in love with movies. Do you have a specific memory or two or three that you're just like, hey, this is when I fell in love with the medium and I
Mhm.
have not looked back ever since?
Yeah, absolutely. My parents were we were a movie family.
Mm,
I was my dad is a professor and he teaches a bunch of different things, but also taught movies,
mm,
filmmaking, and so I learned a
very
lot
cool.
from him.
Yeah.
We would watch movies and they would explain like this is makeup and this is green screen and this is lighting and things, little things like that, and I just fell in love. But they also collected, and so we had a whole closet that was the VHS closet, and it was
Mhm.
pretty much just like a jacket closet that you opened up and they put shelves in, and my dad had it all alphabetized by genre.
Mhm.
He had a list printed out, and every time we bought a movie, he'd write it down and then update the list later.
Mhm.
Um, and I loved it. It was fantastic, and that was back in the day when we you would record onto VHS, from the TV. So we had
Mhm.
a bunch of like burned copies of movies as
Oh yeah.
well. I didn't have the Disney Channel growing up, and
Mhm.
my dad, to get his doctorate, would go to Tennessee like 4 years in a row during the summer to work on it. And I forget exactly like what that was. I was really young, but he had the Disney Channel there. And
Mm.
so he brought a VCR and would come back with so many burned copies of Disney Channel original movies. Like my copy of Brink was a ripped VHS with
Sure.
another one of those classics right after it. And so yeah, and then DVD came out, and I still remember when DVD came out because no one in my town, which was a small town, had a DVD player, but we
Mhm.
did. And so
Mhm.
our rental store, which was a trailer, an actual trailer, like in a trailer park, just gutted and filled with movies,
Mhm.
had a tiny section, like in the dining room of DVD, and we never had to have the issue of a movie being rented, a movie being out
Yeah,
when
it
we
was
wanted to rent
your
it.
section. Yes.
It
Uh-huh.
was pretty much for quite a while.
Mhm.
And I still remember the first DVDs they bought was Muppets from Space, and I think The Mummy, but definitely Muppets from Space. I still remember
Mhm.
that. But yeah, then there was a day where it was, I think, I can't narrow it down exactly, but I think I was a sophomore or junior in high school, 2003, 2004, where I realized when I go to college, I can't take that collection with me. And so I started my own, and my aunt sent me a $20 gift card to Amazon that Christmas. And
Hmm.
this is, early
Yeah,
Amazon,
back
but
in the
you
day.
could
Hmm.
still, yeah, you could still buy movies. And I bought used movies. My very first movies ever were used copies because
Hmm.
I could get as much as I wanted, or,
Right.
as much as I could for 20. And the first movie that I ever bought was Dumb and Dumber on DVD. I'm pretty sure Blue Streak was in there as well, but
Hmm.
and I still have those. I still have those first first few copies. But that's pretty much the origin story of my parents were into it. I loved it, and eventually I realized, oh snap, I need to do this because
Right.
I can't take my parents' collection with me.
Yep.
But yeah, every year in college, I like built janky shelves, and the collection went from being like 3 feet wide to multiple layers, and then it just blew up, of course.
Right. No, yeah. Very similar origin stories, you and I. When I was out of the dorms, like my second year when I was renting out of an apartment,
Nice.
I had my own
Yeah.
little movie section just because I kind of have my own space. I need something to make it my own type of deal.
Yeah.
And God, my parents, we had a giant satellite dish. Like these are like the
Oh
big ones,
yeah.
like huge. We moved into a house that had one. And
Okay.
so this was like 89 when they moved into the house, and there's this giant dish. Like if you've seen Honey I Shrunk the Kids, like the ones outside of that building, like they were ginormous. Like you could
Small
skateboard inside of
soldiers.
it. Yes, that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were able to get satellite, and whenever
That's
they had
awesome.
free weekends, we would just tape
Yeah.
nonstop.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
that's how like the movie Rookie of the Year came out, and
Yeah.
there's still a part of that movie that I don't know what happened because it lost reception for like 20 seconds. So it just like went blurry, staticky, right when like the big bad was about to go up to battle. I'm like, what's happening? What's going on?
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, and we had like so many of those that the shelving that was on it was just this rinky dink shelving. It was starting to bow because the weight of the tapes
Yeah.
was just so
Oh yeah.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
so fun. Uh,
Yeah.
they didn't collect that much, but I had a little library of movies at my house, and I just wanted to make sure that that moved with me because to me as a kid
Mhm.
that meant a lot, and I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that I always had that. And now to see my kids go to my shelf and pick something out, as I mean, they'll
Yeah.
still the majority of the time they will do like streaming or YouTube, but it's
For
very
sure.
nice
Yeah.
whenever we go down every Friday is a movie night. We go down to the basement, they pick something off the wall. It makes me feel good, and it makes me happy to know that like we're just sharing some type of memory for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I think physical media forever, and I think as long as our kids know about it, it's not going to die. Like
Hmm.
this is not the generation that's going to not know about physical media. I
Right.
just don't think that that's going to happen for a really long time. And I think even though Best Buy is getting rid of movies, I think there's a resurgence, just like vinyl.
Hmm.
I don't know how, I don't know when, but man, I think rental stores could come back in some special way. I think it's still totally alive.
I think the next 5 to 10 years will be fine. I'm more nervous about after that, and not necessarily people selling movies because I think there'll always be online. The
Yeah.
world is your oyster. There's so many new releases coming out. My
Yeah.
fear is that like the main thing that made DVD the biggest thing it was the PS2. It just kind of
Mm,
exploded out DVDs to a mass audience.
yeah.
I'm
That
thinking
makes
that
sense.
the new game systems that come out, the majority of them won't even have a disk drive because
Yeah.
a lot of from this generation, a lot of people download. They don't have the discs physically. So
Right.
I can
Yeah.
see a lot of companies just getting rid of those. And if there's not
Yeah.
an easy way to have something play your movies, I think
Yeah.
that's going to be the death knell more than anything else.
Yeah, I get that, and PS5 is already doing it.
Hmm.
And if you're like strapped for cash but want a PS5, yeah, you're going to go for the one without
It's
the
all
the
digital.
player
Yeah.
because
You
who
can hold
needs
three
it?
games on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. You're absolutely right. How do we get players? Yeah, that's very interesting.
That's the main thing, because your average person, I mean, we could go the route to where it's kind of like a vinyl. Like if you really want to listen to music, you will buy a player dedicated to that. It's just, I think movies is going to be a little bit tougher to do, especially a 4K player. It's just, it's a big hump, and I'm not looking forward to when we have to cross that barrier. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, there's an aesthetic with of a vinyl player, a record player, that a DVD, a black box doesn't really have. But you know, like the resurgence of handheld camcorders is happening, which blows me away. Like that's how I learned how to tell stories was just pressing a red button, you know, and recording straight to tape. And I don't know if tape is coming back. It might still be just the ones that used SD cards, but you know, anything's possible. But yeah, we're gonna have to find a way to make the DVD player sexy.
Correct. I'm really hoping that generations after my kids even will at least find some type of reason to think that like having something on your shelf is a good investment to have. Because I mean, with streaming services, you never know what movies they're going to have every month. And I know for me, like one of the main core memories that's always in my brain is like going to the movie rental store. And now that's not a thing. So I just think us old people are going to continue to do this, but the generations after us, I'm not sure. There's a big question mark, and I'm definitely interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, and it's tough because even, you know, like I said earlier, like our kids will know physical media, but our kids can't experience the rental store right now. Depending on where you live, of course, but that's a very small number.
Right. Now they're back to like the mom and pops instead of the big conglomerates.
Yeah. Yeah, which I mean, like I said, my rental store was a trailer. You know, I did not go to a Blockbuster. I've been to some, for sure, but I was never in a Blockbuster, a family video, for my rentals. So yeah, man, that the dream of mine is if I ever make it to be a billionaire, millionaire, I want to buy that trailer, ship it somewhere else, and turn it back into a rental store. Keep the dream alive, man.
That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
Right. Yes. No. I have a dream or two if I just had Monopoly money to play with all the time. Like it would be the best.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. We have a few comments that have been sprinkling in here, so I'm going to sprinkle them here in the chat. Love the channel. Thank you, Jay Walsh. Hey guys, how's it going? The Klooch. It sucks when you have to carry your movies. It's absolutely terrible. Someone who's always in my lives, Infinite Character. He always throws in questions, which I do appreciate. Letterbox, they do a 4 favorite films. Do you have those off the top of your head?
No, dude. This might shock people. I don't even have a Letterboxd.
That is shocking.
I never got into it. And I feel like I would be so behind if I started. And so it's kind of turned into not an ignorance thing, more of just I just don't think I can add one more thing. But it looks awesome, man. It's fantastic. I love that you can just quickly share a list, a ranking. They've made it really they've made movies and loving movies even more fun and even more social. And so I really respect it. I just don't have one. But yeah, man, top 4 is just to me impossible. That being said, there are 2 movies that I always grab and always talk about. And one of these days, I think I just need to admit that these are my tops. These are definitely in my, top 20 for sure. Maybe my top 10. I don't know. But I'm always talking about Donnie Darko.
Sure.
As we all know with favorites, doesn't necessarily mean it's the best movie in the world, but who cares?
Mhm.
There was something about it. It got me at a perfect time.
Sure.
And then, which I think they want it like that. That's right.
Mhm.
Which I know it's like backwards lettering, but this is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind,
Yeah.
which is also one of my favorite steelbooks ever. But Eternal
Sounds
Sunshine
great.
really, as a young filmmaker, I remember watching that with my dad, and we just looked at each other and we were just like, how do you storyboard this? How do you explain this
Mhm.
to a crew? And it's just brilliant storytelling. Absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, I don't think Michel Gondry is ever going to do any better. It's his Citizen Kane.
So funny you bring up that movie. I just bought a whole bunch of movies from Kino Lorber. It was like my first big haul from them, and the main reason why
Yes,
I
yeah,
wanted to is because of Eternal Sunshine. I
yeah.
hadn't seen it in so long. I wanted to watch it in 4K. The movie's great, but it just made me wonder, where did Michel Gondry go? Like, he was
Mhm.
such a unique voice in cinema,
Yeah.
and he had like 2 or 3 big movies, and then just kind of poofed away after the Science of Sleep. And I don't know where he went, but that is just
Yeah,
like, that's a voice that's missed, in my
I
opinion.
know, man.
He said
Well,
some amazing stuff.
he did Be Kind, Rewind,
Hmm.
which was a bit popular, and then unfortunately,
The Green Hornet.
which happens to a lot of great filmmakers,
Hmm.
is Hollywood got a hold of him.
Yeah.
Um, one of my favorite filmmakers who deserves all of everything is David F. Sandberg. Um,
Hmm.
and he did the Shazam movies.
Hmm.
But he is in the spotlight because of a short film of his called Lights Out that he then got to turn into a feature film, and he does not deserve DC. Like DC, like he doesn't deserve the baggage
Hmm.
of those movies. He's so much better than that. Also a YouTuber that is brilliant. If you ever want to look in behind the scenes of
Hmm.
filmmaking, one of the greatest open book types of people. A wonderful guy. You can say whatever you want to say about his projects.
Hmm.
I am rooting for him all of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the Green Hornet, he did a movie called Mood Indigo, which was also very weird. I
Never
think
heard of it.
Christoph
Yeah.
Waltz is in that. I think Christoph
Hmm.
Waltz. But yeah, man, you are absolutely correct. Oh, 2023, The Book of Solutions,
That came out this year. I've
written
never
and
heard of that.
directed. And now it's French, so it's probably
That's
why.
that's probably why. Exactly. Yep.
Because
But
we
that's good.
never.
At least he's come out with something current. He doesn't have to release stuff in America. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Do your thing, man. It
Yeah.
kind of makes me want to watch that now, though.
Oh,
What
yeah.
was it called?
Yeah. The Book of Solutions came
Book
out in
of Solutions.
2023.
Okay.
Yeah, but only released in France. That's crazy.
But again, like
Hmm.
he was a big name like 20 years ago, so it kind of makes sense that it did not get a lot of conversation over here, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Green Hornet, I wanted that movie to be a lot better than what it was. And there were like
Same.
a couple of great visual pops from Gondry, but
Yeah.
nothing like his prime. Be Kind, Rewind. I love watching. That thing is just wholly unique.
Yeah. That's what's the term? Like he literally like created a term.
Oh no. I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah. Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can probably find it.
Uh-huh. I
Yeah,
want to say
man,
like
that was a lot of fun.
mm-hmm. I want to say it starts with an S, like it's like
I think it
schwashed it,
is.
right? It's
Yeah,
some nonsense word, but yeah,
we're gonna find it.
I do know what you're
Sweeted.
talking about.
Sweeted.
Sweded. Okay, so I was kind of
Yeah,
close, relatively close.
that's funny.
Very good.
Yeah, that's great.
Let's see here.
But
We got
yeah, no,
Hey
go
from
ahead.
Alley, Movie Hunter, Evening Everybody. Let's see here. The Old Dish, yes, absolutely. In the newsroom, yes. I one of my first jobs out of college was working for a news station, and
Nice.
those big honking satellite dishes.
Yeah.
There were like 6 of them in the parking lot. Let's see here. I know you showed off the Eternal Sunshine Steelbook, but do you have any other favorites?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I
Mhm.
grabbed it on purpose.
There you go.
It is just beautiful. But yeah, it is the lenticular
Ooh,
arrival.
who made that?
Um, couldn't
Is it
even
like a
tell you
Nova
because
Media?
it is a
Here, let me
it
make
is
that
a
bigger. Oh, geez.
yeah,
I'm not, I'm not sure.
potentially a
Yeah.
potentially a foreign language.
That
With
definitely looks
this
like it.
movie, you never know, but yeah, man, it's and then
Lenticulars, man.
so that's the back.
Hmm.
Freaking love this movie. Um, yeah, so there's that, and then that's the back, which is
Awesome. Yes.
brilliant. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of premium steel books in your collection, or just like a
Um,
slim few for your favorite movies?
I would say a slim few,
Hmm.
secondhand,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, it's pretty much like I said, like I would rather the most beautiful version of the product, and I actually have an example um that I think is a pretty good example of what I'm talking about. Now,
Hmm.
of course, of course I purchased it because it's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's my thing, but
It's like you
this
collected or something.
this is not special to me. This is very boring compared to what the DVDs were. And
Hmm.
so even though I could use some space and get rid of the DVD now that I have the Blu-ray,
Hmm.
um, I'm holding on to this because it's beautiful, it's nostalgic, seeing those spines at every half price books just brings me joy because they're always there.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I want the more beautiful copy, and if that means giving up a 4K for a Blu-ray, but it's an incredible steelbook, then that's fine with me. So, um, yeah, it's if I can get really cool copies of movies, that's definitely the plan for the most part when it comes to if I am going to upgrade my DVDs. It's going to be a really good version. And if anything, if it just has to be a standard 4K or a standard Blu-ray,
Hmm.
hopefully it has a really nice slipcover.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Slip covers. I'm never like a big. If they're there, they're great. But with a
Yeah.
boutique label, I feel like I need to have a slipcover on
Yeah.
there just so
Yeah.
it looks more uniform with everything else. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's something. I don't own a Vinegar Syndrome title without a slipcover at this point, just because
Nice.
what's the
Yep.
point? You know, what
Yeah,
is the point?
absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think Blu-ray and 4K cases are kinda ugly too on the spine
Hmm.
without them. There's
Sure.
something about DVD, DVD is just so rectangular,
Hmm.
and it's goofy that we're, like, even complaining about small things like that, but like I said, man, it's art on your wall,
Yeah.
everyone has the things that they are obsessed with,
Hmm.
like me being ridiculous about not having, two movies on one disc, that stuff matters to each and every one of us. And so
Yeah.
um yeah, I say stick to it and be strict
Right.
for
Well,
sure.
that's why I like collecting steel books so much because number one, they look great on the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're kind of blocky, and
Hmm.
just the artwork on steel books tends to be better than what your average release would be. I have magnets all over the place to where I can
Yeah.
kind of display
That's
my
brilliant.
steel books just
Yeah.
because they look amazing, and it's nice to have them. But sometimes I want to see more than just the spine on the shelf. I want to kind of see the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It looks great. But I think that's everything I had on my end. Would you want to plug anything for the people watching out there?
Yeah, man, if they want to come see what the series is up to, eventually the next challenge, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I think the next challenge is really focusing on getting rid of movies.
Hmm.
Um, in my living room, there is a section of movies that are not on shelves, and
Mm,
it is a goal of mine to get rid of that many movies
sure.
throughout like everything so that it's all nice and clean and
Hmm.
things like that. And so that is definitely it's a small goal. I think, I don't think it needs to be stretched out to be like this big crazy thing. If anything, it might be a part of a series of small goals, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's like I said, I have to move in the fall, so I'm already planning ahead of um starting to bring things down
Fall's
a
gonna
little
come
bit.
quick for sure. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's been I've always been a big proponent of like making sure that I don't have stacks upon stacks of stuff everywhere. Like I have where is it? This stack over here, right there, which is stuff I still need to put away, and that drives me nuts. Even I at
Dude,
least other than that, other than like those 60, 70 movies or
yeah,
whatever, everything else is at least put up there because
that's great.
it's very easy to have like an overwhelming just stack masses of stacks everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's ridiculous that um that happens because it affects you negatively when it shouldn't. This is something that you love. You don't want to look at it and be like, why do I do that?
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel the pain. Every time you post a video and you're holding, the biggest stack in the world, I'm always just like, and then you put it, in its spot. I
Mhm.
always think to myself, how do you still have room? This is insane to me.
What I don't show is like when I have to buy a new shelf and I have to like take stacks of movies to move them over there because
Yeah.
that doesn't make fun content and it's hard
Yeah,
to do that
exactly.
with one arm. So
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
I I
Yeah.
make it as entertaining as I possibly can, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of like reshuffling behind the scenes
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah. There's like I've definitely taken some at the end off just so there's room to slide in the film and then later, fix it. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. No, it's got to be good for an audience to watch at the
Yeah,
yeah
exactly.
at the utmost. Yeah. And Movie Hunter said that that Arrival looks like the
Mm,
Wheat Collection. Yeah, he's a bigger steelbook guy than I. Like he's into everything, and he collects every single U.S. steelbook that's been released. He's done it for the past couple of years. Yeah, he knows the steelbook stuff more than I. That's for sure. I like to collect it, but I don't research it a lot. But
yeah,
with
man.
at the end of every episode, I do like to kind of tease who's going to be on the next episode. And
Nice.
this one is fun because this will be the first person that I'll have on that is part of the business of physical media.
Wow.
I'm gonna have on Eric Wilkinson, and he is an acquisition director for MVD. So all
That's
of the
awesome.
Rewind collection stuff that comes
Yeah.
out, I think they're just coming out with Cutting Class, like a really old movie, one of the first movies that Brad Pitt was in. It's a
Wow.
just a really crappy slasher film. He came out with
Yeah.
like Jack Frost 1 and 2. It'll be really
Oh,
fun
yeah.
to kind of
Those are great.
talk with him and just kind of pick his brain for a little bit just to see how that process works. Because I've always been fascinated with like how do you come up with the titles that you end up releasing or which ones are stuck on the cutting room floor. So yeah, that should be very very fun to talk about.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a list, right? Maybe of like, hey, if you want to release this, you can. Like, man, I would be very interested to see how you even keep up with like what's available, what's not, who's doing what. Because and then
Right.
some people like release the same movie as well. So
Yes.
how's that possible? So
And
yeah,
that's been
that's
happening a
interesting.
lot recently. Like I just bought Mean Streets on Criterion, but
Yeah.
2 months later it came out on Second Sight. It's just like, how does this? It's got to be like a US UK
Mm.
distribution thing, and they just coincide with their releases. I don't know how it works, but I'm hoping to get a little bit of insight on there. So I can't
Yeah,
wait for
that's
that
awesome.
next week. Yeah,
Man, that'd be great.
yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on here, Brian. I had a blast talking with you, and I will continue to watch your journey getting out of debt. And I can't wait until that number goes all the way down to zero. I know you can't wait either. It's gonna be a fun ride nonetheless.
It's gonna be emotional, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be nuts, and it's not gonna feel real. But yeah, man, thank you, dude. I really appreciate it. I've fully enjoyed your friendship throughout the years. Fully enjoyed your content. Um, Keep it up, man. It is this kind of goes out to just every physical media niche, creator, it's tough when 16 other people can show the same movie that they
Hmm.
also bought. It is really tough, and I see it a ton with things that I do. But if you can make it interesting and make it fun, it doesn't matter what you're showing. I think people are just going to be like interested in you as well. And so I say, if you believe in yourself, just keep doing it. And I hope you do the same thing, man. I know, like, I am very fortunate right now to have good numbers. I know that's not going to stay forever, but I've
Hmm.
been in the shoes of, like, man, why am I doing this? There's a reason why. I don't know what it is. But just, man, keep doing it. Keep doing this. This is I guarantee if I went live right now on my YouTube, I would have no audience at all. So the fact that people are showing up, man, and
Hmm.
commenting and asking questions, dude, that's exciting stuff. So
Yeah.
keep it going, dude. That's awesome.
We talked about the TikTok slog that it's been like on their feed. I've been
Yeah.
finding a lot more enjoyment doing the YouTube side of things more than anything else, just because the audience that I do have over here
Yeah.
is like they're always coming to my stuff, and they seem to just really like everything that I do, and that above everything else, like, that means the most to me. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, as long as
Yeah.
there's like some tight knit group. But that's what I love about communities like this anyway. As long as I have somebody to talk to about stuff that I love and we can have a rapport back and forth, it's the best.
Yeah, man. Creating an audience. That's what I've learned is I did a really bad job. When I used to take a title and say, "Oh yeah, I do
Hmm.
have it." That's not creating an audience. That's creating a pick me audience, pick my comment.
Right.
That's not an audience. And so for I wasted my time for a year of not creating an audience. And
Hmm.
numbers, following, like, sometimes it matters, sometimes it definitely doesn't. If you have
Hmm.
an audience showing up, I think that's really the most important thing.
Agreed. Yes. And the evolution of content creation will continue to go on and on, but it's
Yeah.
always, at the very least, it's always fun to see where that ride goes. There's going to be frustrations along the way. As
Mhm.
long as you are motivated and at least still have fun creating the content, those are like the main two things you need to
That's so
focus on.
important. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank
Yeah.
you once again, Brian. This has
Of
been
course.
episode number 16 of Boutique Talk. And until next time, I'll see you.